Welcome to A2Council Update, a recap of the Ann Arbor City Council meeting on July 1st, 2024. This meeting included comments and discussion about hiring a private broker to receive and recommend development proposals for the city-owned property at William and Ashley, sometimes called the Kline lot, reallocating $3.4 million in federal funds that were previously committed to an unarmed public safety program. This is the voting chart for the council meeting on July 1st, 2024. Councilmember Aisha Ghazi Edwin was absent. This was her 10th absence in less than 2 years. There was one split vote on an amendment to the resolution directing the use of a private broker to negotiate sale of the Kline lot. The amendment failed. All other agenda items were approved unanimously. You can find this voting chart and more information about this meeting at A2Council.com. Like and subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. After introductory remarks, public comments, and staff explanations, Council discussed agenda items for about 80 minutes. 6 people signed up in advance to offer public comments. 4 people spoke to topics on the agenda. The consent agenda this week included 18 items and expenditures just over $1.6 million. One item on the consent agenda was removed prior to the meeting, a state grant for $483,000 to support community-based crisis response. This item was previously on the June 18th council agenda and removed. Nothing on the consent agenda was pulled for discussion. All items were approved unanimously. Council considered a resolution that will direct the use of a private broker to sell and develop the Kline lot downtown. This city-owned parcel is located on South Ashley, between William and Liberty, behind the Art Center and just west of Main Street. In April 2019, a previous council unanimously approved a policy that this city-owned property would be assessed as a potential development site for affordable housing. The city's Housing Commission assessed it as high priority, and public engagement revealed significant community support for affordable housing as the top priority. 1 year ago, city officials considered another idea for this city-owned lot. In July 2023, City Administrator Milton Dohoney began exchanging messages with a former employee, Otis Jones, about a potential partnership with the city, county, and University of Michigan for a collegiate sports illustrated on-campus resort program in Ann Arbor. On November 16, 2023, Milton Dohoney sent explanation of the Sports Illustrated Resorts proposal to the whole of City Council, using familiar buzzwords and talking points. On January 29, 2024, residents gathered in person and online to hear presentations from Milton Dohoney, Destination Ann Arbor, city staff, and representatives from Sports Illustrated Resorts. Comments and questions from residents were overwhelmingly negative. Local attorneys and other residents raised concerns about a financing scheme that would involve city-issued tax-exempt bonds, brownfield tax abatements, and other public subsidy of a Sports Illustrated Resorts development. Hours after this public meeting, council members Briggs, Iyer, Radina, and Ackman announced their opposition to the project, which meant it could not move forward. This week, a staff memo declares that in order to market this city-owned property, the scope or vision must be more general than the city has written in the past. The resolution identifies 4 goals for the redevelopment of the city-owned property, sometimes called the Kline lot: housing development at all income levels, sustainability, placemaking, and increasing tax base to generate revenue. Staff explains that this shift in priorities is directed by a council resolution approved 2 months ago, in April. Earlier in the evening, public commenters spoke to the issue.
Some folks in our city, former CMs, are claiming that we were promised the site would have affordable housing built on it. No one made any promises. It might make sense to sell the site for private development, have some of the proceeds go to the Affordable Housing Fund, and look forward to the additional housing millage revenue and property taxes for years to come.
Last time that this subject was discussed here, Councilmember Iyer, citing strong past affordable housing support, said eloquently, we shouldn't pivot away from that without a robust public discussion, and the process should be transparent. What's being sponsored now seems quite different. It looks like the public might only see at the very end the proposal the broker recommends, with the only input possible supporting or opposing it at that point. The past public engagement supported affordable housing here, not a parking lot. The same was true at the recent SI meeting. And where did the placemaking goal come from with respect to this site? From the EDC proposal? That wasn't specific to this site.
The developers all say, if you want affordable housing, the city has to own it itself and not try and tax it and make money off it. Affordable housing is not profitable, and do not give it to the profiteers to build. Makes no sense. If somebody from the city council would strike out that fourth condition, it would improve the city tax base. That is totally contradictory to affordable housing.
City staff explained the resolution.
Essentially, we hire a professional who's knowledgeable in the market, and they do the scoping for us, work with the city to develop a general vision for what we are looking for, and they work directly with interested parties to bring forth a proposal for land development that meets with the city's priorities and also prioritizes, the things that the city council has endorsed in terms of land development, housing in the name of affordability, sustainability, placemaking, and tax base improvements, and prioritizing those things equally.
Council directed questions to staff for about 45 minutes.
On April 1st, City Council passed a resolution orienting economic development around the 4 priorities that Mr. Fournier just mentioned.
We here at the council table don't have the expertise to do this work. Our bench just isn't deep enough, and this expertise is best outsourced.
I don't think we need a robust public engagement process moving forward on this in the sense of a pre-entitlement process.
This is a good opportunity to get out of the way. If we are the problem, and we can hand this to someone who has the expertise and figure this out in a more timely manner.
I think, to be clear, this resolution does not state that we're going to develop this for housing. I mean, it does speak to, the 4 priorities of council, but I guess it's not my read of this resolution that we're necessarily going to get all of the things. There might be trade-offs.
Our recommendation is to go through a competitive procurement process for a commercial broker or a seller's agent. Probably not an RFP process, but more of a phone quote process. These are not businesses that typically do government RFPs. I think it would be important to have a commercial broker or a seller's agent who is on the national development circuit, not somebody who is just a local commercial broker or just works in, Southeast Michigan or something like that. We would want to be talking to developers across the country who have a history of developing projects in urban centers like Ann Arbor's that achieve important placemaking and walkability outcomes.
Not everybody wants to live downtown. Where is affordable housing in Ann Arbor? Where is the need for it? And to recognize that there's diversity of people who want to live and be part of our community, and we should honor the fact that they might not all want to live right in the middle of downtown.
Councilmember Briggs offered an amendment to clarify that a new scope and vision for this property would be voted on by City Council.
I would like to add an amendment that proposes a new resolve clause, resolve that City Council would approve a general scope or vision for future development of this parcel.
City staff and a majority of council opposed the amendment.
So I don't think that, the concept of council approval through a resolution of a vision isn't necessarily problematic. But historically, the city hasn't done well with that approach.
I'm super comfortable with leaning on our vision of economic development, of using those economic development principles of housing with a sense of place that's sustainable and that improves our tax base.
I personally am totally committed to us not digging into the details as if we were the Planning Commission.
We need to bring the commercial broker on and have their expert advice on what this document needs to look like and what it needs to include. And so I think that we would want that input before I could, really even tell you how specifically detailed a vision might be, other than my very general guidance that it should be very general and very vision oriented.
But I think a broker is most poised to bring us what the marketplace is looking to do and give us some options. Maybe, hopefully it's more than one. And if it is, then you would have choices.
In a split vote, the amendment was defeated. Council unanimously approved the original resolution, directing use of a private broker to establish scope and vision for the property and solicit and receive proposals for the sale and redevelopment of this city-owned lot. Council considered a reallocation of nearly $3.4 million in federal funds received through the American Recovery Plan Act. This money was previously allocated to support an unarmed safety response program in the city. A staff memo explains that the money must be reallocated in order to meet commitment and spending deadlines for ARPA funds. City Council first approved the development of an unarmed safety response program in April 2021. By unanimous vote, City Council directed the city administrator to find funding in the 2022 budget for such a program. In April 2022, City Council approved allocations of federal ARPA funds, including $3.5 million for unarmed safety response. A little over $100,000 was spent on consultants to conduct public engagement. In March 2023, the consultants issued a 49-page report. In June 2023, the city opened an RFP, inviting organizations to submit proposals for an unarmed safety response program. The city received one proposal from Care-Based Safety. In December 2023, this proposal was rejected. A second RFP prompted no responses. This week's resolution explains that approximately $3.4 million must be reallocated because the city will not be able to spend it on an unarmed safety response program in time to meet federal deadlines. Earlier in the evening, public commenters spoke to the issue.
I'm disappointed to see the money that was earmarked for unarmed, non-police crisis response in a resolution to reallocate those funds mostly into infrastructure, with a small amount going to public health and safety. I'm still perplexed as to why a community-based org like Care-Based Safety was denied the pilot program in the original RFP. If the $3.5 million ARPA funds are not going to crisis response, then the dollars should go to programs that reduce the impact of crisis, such as supportive housing, non-police court diversion, and other social supports.
I'm asking you to vote no tonight on the reallocation of ARPA funds, previously slated for an unarmed response. It's still possible to salvage this process and continue to support the will of the residents. If there's not an agreement to implement an unarmed response program, please consider using the ARPA funds for programs that provide necessary crisis prevention and support services by and for the community.
City Administrator Milton Dehoney explained the new allocations.
You cannot use this funding for just any purpose. We have hired a consultant to make sure that anything that we propose to do is within the rules.
The Barton Dam Embankment Project will receive the bulk of the funds, $2 million.
This project has nothing to do previously with ARPA. It certainly had nothing to do with unarmed response. What happened was when we got the findings regarding the dam, we went through an RFP process to get a price for repairing the dam. The cost estimate prior to that process was $6 million. When the RFP came back, it came back at $12 million, twice the estimate.
The new Bicentennial Park will receive $400,000.
When the park was created, the way that we set this up in the public was we are asking the public to help fund the park. One of the specific areas of the park that is not going to be funded by a donor is paving, the repaving of the park. As we are asking people to consider making significant gifts to the park, a fundamental question always comes up, well, what is the city doing other than changing the name? So by doing the paving, we are demonstrating our commitment to help move the project along.
Almost $400,000 will be spent on a new ambulance.
What we've seen is that the mid-run volume continues to go up, and with us moving towards greater density within the city, the need for the second ambulance, the business case has been made, and so that's why we're asking for it.
$500,000 will be allocated to an emergency operations center.
An emergency operations center is activated when you have out-of-control fires, when you have gas explosions that take down buildings, when you have massive city power outages, when you have mass shootings, and when you have major weather events.
Safe House will receive an additional $100,000.
They are seeing a dramatic increase in cases. They have noted in Washtenaw County the increase in homicides. A number of those have a DV-related element attached to them. They are currently operating at a deficit, and so all of the things that we are proposing would seem to fit.
Council discussed the reallocation of ARPA funds for about 30 minutes.
The initial intended use of these funds don't seem to align very well with some of the priorities that we're talking about.
Like many, I'm disappointed that our unarmed crisis response initiative fell through using ARPA funding. However, it is important to be thoughtful and strategic to ensure that unarmed crisis response succeeds in Ann Arbor, and that is going to take time.
I'm similarly disappointed that we are unable to roll out an unarmed response program, but understanding that that is the fact. For me, the prior allocation doesn't really have a great deal of normative force. Very little was done in reliance upon it. It was something that we created for ourselves based upon our aspirations.
I share disappointment at this table, but remain committed to seeing this through with staff.
I too am disappointed that we're in a position where we need to reallocate these funds.
I too share the disappointment that we don't have a shovel-ready unarmed response program right now.
Now we can find other creative ways to assist our vulnerable community members with additional, ordinance revisions and taking a closer look as to how folks come into contact with the justice system unnecessarily.
The reallocations were approved unanimously. The meeting ended just after 9 p.m. with no further public comment. For more details about this meeting, visit A2Council.com.
Welcome to this week's A2Council Moment of Zen.
The commitment of the city has not waned at all.
I feel that his commitment is sincere.
The commitment to unarmed response is completely unaffected.
I remain 1,000% committed.
There's considerable commitment throughout the city.
I'm just wondering why we aren't committing more.
We are demonstrating our commitment.
I personally am totally committed.
We are fully committed.
That's all I've heard around the table tonight is a sincere commitment.